The signal tower. Beyond the last paved road, past the hills where the fog collects like breath in the morning, there stands a single metal tower. It rises from the trees like a thought left unfinished, tall, thin, skeletal. No one knows who built it. No wires run from it. No lights blink on it. It just stands, unmoving, watching the forest below. The locals call it the signal tower, though they say no signals ever come from it. No radio static. No humming. Just silence. Eva first saw it on the drive to her late uncle's cabin. She hadn't visited in years, not since childhood, but something about the stillness of the forest had called her back. The cabin was small and low to the ground, nestled deep in pine and silence. A single dirt road wound past a dry creek and through a patch of white-barked trees before it reached the porch. She saw the tower through the trees on the second day. A metal spire, barely visible, yet somehow impossible to ignore. It didn't look new or old. Just out of place. Like it had been dropped there by mistake. The cabin had no TV. No cell signal. Just a crackling fireplace and a collection of old paperback novels. Eva found it comforting. She spent her days walking the trails, sipping warm drinks, and letting time slip away like leaves in a stream. But every time she stepped outside, her eyes drifted toward the tower. It stood perfectly still. No sound. No motion. Not even the birds flew near it. And at night, she dreamed of static. Soft, low static, like the inside of an old radio. Faint pulses of white noise beneath whispering voices she couldn't quite hear. When she woke, she was always facing the window. Facing the tower. On the fifth day, the fog came early. It rolled in thick and low, curling around the porch posts and draping itself along the ground. Eva sat by the window with her tea, watching the mist drift. And somewhere out in the white, she saw a light. Faint. Flickering. At the top of the tower. Just once. Then gone. That night, the silence changed. It wasn't louder, just more aware. The kind of silence that listens. The kind that hums just beneath hearing, like a thought that won't settle. Eva lay in bed, eyes open in the dark, her breath slow. And in the hush, she heard something faint. A click. Then another. Steady. Measured. Mechanical. It echoed from somewhere far off, out toward the tower. She rose before the sun. Wrapped in a coat, boots soft on the frost-bitten ground, she stepped into the pale morning and followed the sound. There was no path, but the trees opened for her. The clicks continued, faint, rhythmic, like a machine trying to remember its purpose. The closer she came, the quieter the forest grew. Birdsong vanished. The wind hushed. And there, rising through the thinning mist, was the signal tower. It was taller up close. Metal bones rusted and streaked with moss. No doors. No cables. Just a narrow ladder disappearing upward into the gray. At its base was a small box. Old. Iron. Hinged. She knelt and opened it. Inside was a set of headphones. They were heavy, padded in cracked leather, a coiled cable vanishing into the ground beneath the tower. Eva stared at them for a long moment, unsure why her hands moved before her mind decided. She placed the headphones over her ears. And heard the ocean. Waves, distant and slow. A sound so wide it seemed to stretch into the horizon. Then, behind the waves, voices. Murmuring. Not words. Just shapes of sound. A rhythm, like breathing. Then silence. Then. We remember. The voice was not male or female. Not loud. Just present. Like a memory spoken aloud. Then static. Then nothing. She removed the headphones and sat very still. The tower above her hummed faintly, though the air around it was still. She did not hear the forest anymore. Back at the cabin, the clocks ticked wrong. Not off, just unaligned. Her wristwatch said morning. The stove clock said dusk. The air smelled of salt, though she was hundreds of miles from any coast. The tower light blinked again that night. Just once. In the days that followed, Eva returned to the base of the tower each dawn. She listened. Sometimes it was the ocean again. Sometimes it was soft music, like something played on a warped record, slow, stretching. Once, it was her own voice. Speaking words she didn't remember saying. The tower never changed. But the space around it did. No birds came near. The wind moved around it in circles. And the fog never touched its base. She tried once to climb it, but after 3 rungs, the ladder seemed to go on forever, stretching upward into dark. She climbed down again. And didn't try again. One night, she stayed past dusk. The forest dimmed, and the mist crept in. She sat at the tower's base, headphones in her lap. And when the light blinked, it stayed on. Not bright. Just steady. She placed the headphones on. And listened. No voices this time. No waves. Just breath. Not hers. Slow, even breath, like sleep. She closed her eyes. And for a moment, the forest disappeared. She was somewhere colder. Wider. Beneath stars she didn't recognize. A vast field of signal. And her body hummed with it. When she opened her eyes, the light at the top of the tower blinked once more. Then went out. She removed the headphones. The forest was still. But not empty. She felt watched. Not threatened. Just, remembered. Eva returned to the cabin. The fog clung a little longer now. The clocks no longer matched any time she recognized. And sometimes, at the edge of sleep, she heard the ocean again, just below her pillow, just behind the walls. She did not tell anyone. She stayed until the first frost, then left. The tower is still there. No wires. No signal. But if you go deep into the forest on a quiet day, you might hear the soft click of something starting up. Something remembering. And if you find the headphones waiting, you can listen too. But only once. Because the tower keeps what it hears. And it never forgets. The house beyond the field. There was a path no one walked anymore. It began where the road turned to gravel and the fences fell apart, winding between yellow fields and long-forgotten ditches. Time had worn it to something less than a trail, more than a memory. And at the very end of it, hidden behind a wall of overgrown trees, sat a house with no known name. It wasn't abandoned, exactly. It was simply, waiting. Mara found the house in early spring, while exploring the countryside alone. She liked to wander with no destination, just her boots, her coat, and the sky. The fields were soft with new grass, and the wind moved through them like breath through a dream. She hadn't meant to go that far. But when she saw the edge of the trees, dark and leaning inward, something drew her forward. Beyond them, the house appeared, 2 stories, wooden, faded to gray. The windows were all closed, and the porch slanted gently to one side. A single chimney rose from the roof, no smoke, no scent. It looked untouched. Unclaimed. Still. Mara stood at the gate, which hung open on one hinge. There were no signs of recent visitors. No footprints in the soft dirt. No marks on the weathered boards. Just the sound of the wind in the grass behind her. And silence ahead. She didn't enter. Not that day. She only looked, then turned back, the image of the house settling somewhere behind her eyes like dust on glass. But she dreamed of it that night. A dream where she walked the old path again, only it was dusk this time, and the grass was taller. The house stood the same, but its windows glowed faintly, as though something within remembered light. She stepped onto the porch in the dream, touched the doorknob, and just before opening it, she woke. For days, the memory of the house clung to her thoughts. She tried walking other paths, exploring new places. But none of them stayed in her mind the way that house did. It was as though she had brushed against something unfinished. So, on the 7th day, just before evening, she went back. The path was easier to follow this time, as if it had remembered her footsteps. The trees parted gently at her approach. And the house looked just as it had before, tired, quiet, almost kind. Mara stepped through the gate. The porch creaked softly beneath her weight, but the boards held. She ran her fingers over the railing, rough with splinters and time. The door wasn't locked. It swung open with a sigh, as though it had been waiting. Inside, dust hung in the air like mist. The light was dim, filtered through linen curtains yellowed with age. The air smelled of dry wood, earth, and something faintly floral, like lavender long since wilted. She stepped inside. The floor was solid beneath her boots. The walls held the echoes of forgotten voices, not loud, just hints of them, like warmth left on a pillow. Each room was simple, empty of clutter, yet carefully arranged. A table by the window with one chair. A fireplace with a cold grate and an unused matchbox. Shelves without books. Hooks without coats. It felt like a house between moments, tidied for company that never came. She found herself whispering, "Hello," though she didn't know why. The house didn't answer. But it felt like it listened. Upstairs, the rooms grew quieter still. One door stood open to a small bedroom, where a bed had been made long ago and never slept in again. The blanket was thin, the pillow untouched. A single lamp stood on the bedside table, unplugged, its cord tucked neatly away. In the corner was a mirror. Tall, narrow, and framed in pale wood. Mara approached it slowly. Her reflection was dim, muted by dust, but it was her. Only, quieter. A version of herself that looked back not with recognition, but patience. She turned away before it could unsettle her. She explored the house for hours, though time didn't seem to move the way it should. Shadows shifted, but the light through the windows never changed. The wind outside came and went, but no sound ever entered. It was peaceful. Strangely so. She sat by the table in the kitchen and rested her hands on the wood. There was a feeling of gentleness there. A memory not her own. Of someone who once waited. Of someone who never left. Mara told herself she'd only stay a little longer. Just until dusk. But dusk never came. When she finally stepped outside, the sky was unchanged. The sun hung low, unmoving. The wind in the grass had stilled. Even the air felt paused. She looked back at the house. It seemed no different. Yet something had shifted. It no longer looked like a place you stumbled upon. It looked like a place that chose to let you in. She visited often after that. Never with intent. Never with plans. Just walking the path, crossing the fields, returning to the silence. Each time, the house felt more familiar. Each time, she stayed a little longer. The days outside the house became harder to hold on to. Noises felt louder. Time moved too fast. People's voices felt out of tune. But inside the house, everything slowed. Everything settled. And slowly, Mara forgot why she'd ever wanted to leave. They say the path past the broken fences is overgrown now. The trees at the edge have closed in, knotting their limbs until no one passes. The field is quiet. The wind moves differently there. And sometimes, if the sky turns just the right shade of silver, people say they see a house at the edge of the field, only for a moment, before it fades into the trees. They say someone lives there. But no one ever answers the door. And the windows? They glow. Just faintly. As though someone inside remembers the warmth of the world. And is still waiting.